Splitting hairs can kill your business. Normally I hop on here and I talk about growing or supersizing your business. But today I want to talk about how splitting hairs, actually sticking to your guns, or sticking to really small, unimportant things can actually kill your business. Well, how can it kill your business? I've actually been involved in a lot of different industries and a lot of different businesses. And even me in the past, I would be really tied into and really, I thought it was really important for my ego and for my career and for my level of success to stick to my guns, to stick to my values, to stick to what I believed was right. And sometimes I would carry that too far, and I would argue for things that really didn't matter. They weren't my core values. They weren't what my business or me personally stood for. They were little things. And I remember being in some department head meetings and thinking about, I would have this position on something and other people would have another position, and we'd be disagreeing about it. And then I would take a deep breath and I'm like, does this really matter? And if it didn't, I'd be like, yeah, go ahead. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how we get a result necessarily. It's the result that matters. This is really important in our relationships. Sorry about that. Business is all about relationships, right? I think about my marriage, and my ex-husband and I would split hairs about a lot of stuff. And my favorite arguments were the ones where I would realize in the midst of the discussion that we were actually on the same side. We were arguing for the same thing, but because we would describe it differently, we'd actually be arguing about it. Even though we both had the same core values, we wanted the same thing, we actually wanted the same result, but we were arguing about the finer points and the details of how to get that exact result. And maybe it was something with the kids, maybe it was something with our communication, our relationship, but it was definitely splitting hairs. And that I'm divorced, so that relationship obviously didn't work out. The same thing will happen in your business if you're not careful and if you're not paying attention. You can lose incredible talent if you're splitting hairs. You can lose deals and customers if you're splitting hairs. I'll give you a couple examples of that. In the real estate industry, my ex-husband and I had a business where we negotiated short sales, and the loss mitigators would have, and part of it was because they didn't have the authority, which is something you can learn from here, or the ability to negotiate. They didn't have the power to make decisions on their own. So they would actually have to say no to deals where they would, for like $100 would be the difference. They would have to say no because of their company guidelines, and they would lose the entire deal that would be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, definitely thousands and tens of thousands of dollars, but sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars to their organization, or even millions of dollars in a couple of instances, because they were splitting hairs. It would be over $100 repair, and they would say no, and they would let the whole deal fall through and not close because of a $100 thing. So would you lose a $100,000 over a $100 thing? It happens every day. Would you lose a good, amazing candidate over one day of vacation? They were negotiating and they wanted one more day of vacation, even one more week of vacation. And because you wouldn't say yes to that, they said no to your job offer and they went to somewhere else. They went to your competition, probably, right? Have you ever lost a customer over something that they wanted that a competitor was doing, and they ended up going to the competitor? I can think of a couple of examples of that. Sometimes a competitor will offer a longer guarantee, and instead of matching their guarantee, you say, no, we have a 30-day guarantee. That's our policy, and we're sticking to it. Now, the competition had a 60-day guarantee, and if we'd honored that guarantee for the customer, we weren't going to do it for everybody, but if we'd done it for that one customer, we would have, number one, delighted that customer, made them happy. And what is the probability of the product or service that we were selling failing in that 30-day period, between 30 days and 60 days? Because we already had a 30-day guarantee. So it wasn't, what is the chance of that failing? Oh my God. I mean, upper management was all like, oh, it might fail in 60 days. Well, then we shouldn't be selling it. We shouldn't be offering that product or service if we know it might fail in less than 2 months. That's ridiculous. So it's an example of splitting hairs where you will lose customers to the competition. It's not always about meeting the competitor's price, but it is about exceeding their value and the whole value proposition. That's why it's so important to create offers for people, not just sell products or services. If I am, a store, say Best Buy, and I am offering just what everybody else is offering, and I'm only competing on price, I win as long as I have the lowest price. But if I'm not the lowest price provider of that particular thing, then people will price shop. We're going to price shop. We're going to get the best deal for us. That's human nature. So are you splitting hairs in your company? Are you splitting hairs in your life? Are you splitting hairs in your relationship? I ask myself a series of questions now when I catch myself, because I catch myself toward doing this, leaning toward this. We decide as humans that this is the way we look at things, and everybody else should look at things that way too. And we dig in our heels. We get stubborn about stuff. I have been known to be stubborn. And so now I try to ask myself, when I notice that I'm doing that, does this really matter? Is this really important? Is me saying yes to this going to really make the other person feel good about it? And does it really matter if I say yes or not? Is it going to matter is it even going to matter tomorrow? Is it going to matter in a week, a month, a year? It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. Is it going to matter in our relationship? Is it going to make our relationship better? And does it really make a difference? Or am I just trying to split hairs over something that really isn't that important? It just doesn't matter. I negotiated. Once I've discovered this and learned this, I learned to be a really good negotiator. And in corporate America, I negotiated really incredible job deals and job offers for myself because I knew what was important to me. And I asked for it. And a lot of times, if you just ask for what you want, you get it. So if you're dealing with somebody that's splitting hairs, sometimes I never believed in splitting things down the middle. Now, my ex-husband in real estate negotiations, he's like, well, we'll just split it down the middle. Well, that's not necessarily the right thing to do, because sometimes you can just give in on it and it's win-win for everybody. And if it speeds up the process, it's really win-win for everybody. So have you experienced splitting hairs in your past, in your businesses and in your life and in your relationships? Have you experienced you splitting hairs? And how has that worked out for you? How has that turned out? Did you win? Because sometimes when you win, you lose. Or did you lose because you were so, invested in your outcome that you weren't willing to be flexible? Because we have to be open-minded and flexible in our ever-changing world. That's it. Go out. Have an awesome day. Don't split hairs over anything. If it doesn't matter, let it go, right? And I'll, of course, be with you tomorrow. Bye.